Hey guys, welcome to another video today. Right now I'm going to talk about my greatest fears living in Arizona. It's not all, sunshine and roses here. There are some things that make me shiver in my boots a little bit. I don't think this is in any particular order. I'll probably say the biggest fear for last. So one of my fears, or you can say multiple, are the wild animals around here. We've got coyotes. I know we got coyotes all over, but coyotes are just seem to be a lot more prevalent around here. We got bobcats, just wild animals in general. I've heard about bobcats walking around some neighborhoods, walking across front lawns, on the porch, whatever. I don't know what I would do if I would come across a bobcat. I know that we are building so much and we're building into their territory, and frankly, they have nowhere else to go. So I'm not blaming the animals, but I don't want to see them. I really don't. There's been a lot of coyote sightings. I've seen a coyote. One night we were coming home from the movies about 10 o'clock, and I was looking across the street, and I'm like, is that a coyote? So we drove over there, and it definitely was a coyote. I'm not as likely as I once was to go out at night because I'm just a little nervous about seeing one, or coming across one. You're not supposed to run, I know that. You're supposed to make a lot of noise. Normally they're not supposed to be aggressive to humans, but if they have been getting into some trash cans or being fed or whatever, they can lose their fear of humans. So I've read that if you come across a coyote in the daytime, that coyote is probably not afraid of humans anymore. They are dangerous to your small animals, so be careful about your cats, be careful about your small dogs. I wouldn't even leave a small dog in a yard by themselves, because I've heard about coyotes walking on top of these black wall fences. The bobcats, I've heard that they aren't aggressive to humans unless they're sick and they have rabies, but I don't know what they have, if I see one. Another thing that I'm scared about are scorpions. Now this one is more manageable, because when I first got here, I really at one point thought I had made a big mistake. Like, what did I do? Why? Why did I move somewhere that has scorpions? I was seeing them maybe once or twice a week, and I thought that was bad at the time. It was nothing compared to what I would encounter in another house. I was in the garage one day and I opened up a chair that had been on the floor, and I was about to sit down and there was a scorpion. And that's when I just had that breakdown. Like, this sucks. I do not want to be here anymore. This is not what I wanted to be dealing with this early on. And then we moved into another house after we moved away and came back. And this house was a nightmare for scorpions. We even talked to the landlady and we said, is this something you ever dealt with when you were here? And she said, oh yeah, I've raised my family here and we had them all the time. And she said her daughter got stung by a scorpion. She was like, it was no big deal. She's like, oh, we panicked and we took her to the hospital, but she was okay. Why? Why do I keep moving into houses that have scorpions? Because some people can live here their whole lives and they've said they've never seen a scorpion, and we just keep moving into houses that are infested with scorpions. So after my husband, he talked about in more than one video getting stung by a scorpion in our bedroom, in our bed. After that, we tried the DIY thing. It was somewhat successful, but when my kids found scorpions upstairs in their bathroom, that's when I said, okay, enough is enough. We're done with the DIY. And we hired a spraying company to come out, and it did wonders. It has been absolutely amazing. I kid you not. We saw no more scorpions in that house. We saw one on the inside of the door when we were leaving to move. We've seen one here because we kept the spray, monthly sprays going. We've seen one here. We had them spray the garage. Normally they just spray the outside. And haven't seen scorpions since then. So I'd say my fear of scorpions is still there, but it can be managed. So it's really not something that I'm actively dealing with or worried about anymore. Another one of my fears are the drivers. I could do a whole video on that. The drivers around here are they're crazy. Like, they are just wild. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't like to drive on the freeway as it is. You know, there's always accidents around here. There's a lot of traffic. I know it's worse. It can be worse, but it's my fear. So if it's not yours, that's fine. But you know, people are always getting hit, pedestrians. I don't like to be out here with these drivers. This fear is not really like a life or death fear or fear of bodily harm. This one is about affordability for my kids. Because everybody still thinks Arizona is so cheap and affordable. And yeah, it depends on where you're coming from. But for most people, I don't think they're gonna get here and find it as cheap as they think. Housing prices are through the roof. I don't know what the next decade will bring, you know, but I see my daughter, she's a teenager. She's gonna be out here in the world in the next few years. And I just worry about her being able to, as a young person who's just starting out in life, is she gonna be able to afford to rent in a decent part of the valley? Is she gonna be able to afford to buy a house? How's life gonna be for her? And probably, I'm sure less than a decade, she'll be out there on her own. And I just worry about my kids not being able to afford it here. I'm not gonna get into a whole big discussion about stats and figures. That's my husband's thing. You know, we have our home and hopefully we won't have any job losses, but for me, it's more about what my kids are gonna encounter. I don't know what the environment will be like in the coming years on affordability. This one is probably my top fear, and that is valley fever. Now, surprisingly, we've had a lot of natives comment, and people have lived here all their lives and said they've never heard of valley fever. If you live in the valley or if you have visited the valley, you've already been exposed to the spores. It's a fungal infection. It is carried in the air. It's in the soil, it's in the dirt. So if you're out there working in the dirt a lot, or if you're, you know, farming or construction or dirt biking, whatever that is, you have a lot higher risk of getting valley fever. If you go out in a dust storm, don't go out in a dust storm. I know it's tempting to check it out and get a closer look. I used to do that when I first got here. Bad idea, because that's when it really gets kicked up. Symptoms can range from mild, you can have it and not even know it until you've had a blood test, or it can get to severe. Most of the time it's mild and it can go away on its own. The reason why I fear valley fever is because African Americans, Hispanics, Filipinos, Native Americans, basically anybody of color is prone to getting the more severe symptoms and complications of valley fever. You can die from it, it's rare. I was on the University of, I think it was University of Arizona site. They said 160 people a year die of valley fever. It's not a lot, but it still can happen. Sometimes you have to have antibiotics. You can have fever, chills, flu-like symptoms. So me, obviously being a person of color, I'm just more concerned about getting the more severe version of it. So when my kids are outside, I'm like on their case. Like, do not play in the dirt. Don't kick around me, none of that stuff. If it's a windy day and we're driving by a field and there's a lot of dust in the air, I will roll my window up. I don't play with it. I stay my butt in the house when there's a dust storm now. I do take precautions for that. The thing is, anywhere you move, there are dangers. And someone made a comment on a video to my husband, because I wasn't involved in the channel at that time, and said that they moved here and they got valley fever and now they are hospitalized and they're really sick. And I felt bad for that person when I read that comment, but he was basically insinuating that it was our channel's fault, that we didn't talk enough about the dangers of valley fever. Let me give you a disclaimer. We are not responsible for your health and safety if you move to Arizona. If you get eaten by a bobcat, that is not our fault. If you get stung by a scorpion and you die, that is not our fault. If you get valley fever, that is not our fault. We are just regular Joes doing a YouTube channel, giving you information that we know. We talk about what we think you want to know about. We don't necessarily spend 2 hours on any one subject. We sometimes take a while to get to subjects. As an adult, and I'm assuming all of the people who watch this channel are adults who are moving, that is your job to research and to find out what things you need to be worried about, concerned about, aware of, protections you need to take. That is on you. That really is on you. We had to do the same thing. Before we moved to any place, we were not depending on a YouTube channel to be responsible for anything that happens to us after we move. Because this guy was like, you should have talked more about it, you should have warned us more. I know most of you know this, and I'm sorry, but for the few that don't, we are not taking responsibility for anything that happens to you after you move here. I hope that you all have a good and safe experience here, but don't come blaming us if you don't. I'm sorry. So those are my biggest fears about living in Arizona. It doesn't really affect the quality of my life. I just take some precautions and we do some extra stuff to make sure we're safe, and we hope that nothing bad happens, but if it does, you know, that's kind of life. We could have got swept away in a tornado back in Ohio and Michigan. So tell me, what are your biggest fears if you live here or if you're moving here about living in Arizona, living in the desert? Let us know in the comments below, and thank you for watching.
Perfect.